One of the things that most students know about Esther when they come into Old Testament studies courses is the name of God doesn't occur in the book of Esther. And that's unusual, right? The Old Testament is God's story. And you would think that God as a main character would want to make sure that he's present in each of those books that get recorded and included in the canon of the Old Testament. So here's this book of Esther where we have no overt reference to God, no divine names or titles. What's going on with Esther is typically what students might ask as they think about where's God in this book. Well, sometimes God likes to be subtle. And sometimes in his subtlety, I think he's profoundly involved and engaged with his people, and maybe is there in a very deafening way when we stop and think about it. And so I like to encourage our students to think about Esther this way. Are there subtle ways where God is visible, where God is, in a sense, seen behind the scenes? This unseen hand of God working in the story of Esther. Esther's about deliverance. It's about redemption of the people of Israel who are still in Mesopotamia after exile. That's another question. But God's presence in the book, I think, is seen in several ways. One is the name Jew itself, the name for the people group, the Jews. This name for the Jewish people occurs more than 50 times in the book. And in the ancient world, when you were known by your identity ethnically, that also tagged you by way of your religion. That's just the way it works in the ancient world. The Persians were known not only as Persians, but by their adherence to the god Ahura Mazda and Persian religion. The Jews are known not only as Jewish people, but also by their God, this Adonai, this Yahweh God that's their God. And so for the writer to mention Jew over and over again is a clue that God's here, that God's here. The word deliverance is also a divine clue. When Mordecai says to Esther, God can deliver, and you can step up and be involved, that word deliver is another cue to us. God is the one who delivers. God is the deliverer across the Old Testament. And so there's another place where subtly we see God's presence in the book of Esther. Another way that God is seen in the book of Esther is in this series of remarkable coincidences that show us that God is there working and moving behind the scenes and moving this story to accomplish his purpose of redemption and deliverance. And so I think that as we deal with the book of Esther and God's presence, there's that issue of circumstantial, really, intervention and God's providential oversight of the history in such a way that he accomplishes the purpose of deliverance and redemption for his people as we think about the Esther story.